Here we go. Our next guest is...
For the permit. I don't care if you buy a permit. Do you know how little I actually care if you have a permit?
Complaining about the fact that he received no support from that. I think Bode has some.
Yes, I do.
Oh,
I got some leaks for you.
It's like simple shit like that. No, simple shit like that. If he can't answer that publicly,
I need to break in because I need more original every week. That's a goal.
Do you really actually get paid for that? Because you deserve money for that last one. That one was a fucking amazing setup.
I don't know. I thought you had a drinking problem, Dirk.
My mouth.
I don't have a drinking problem.
You're saying it's not really a problem.
I mean, to be fair,
I'm saying I have a drink, therefore it's not a problem.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Did Convict just pull that off perfectly?
I think he did.
So, yeah.
It was unintentional, but yeah, it's like I just threw the grenade just before the stream started. Good job.
That was good. That was good. Meanwhile, I had the intro from last week still queued up, so I didn't think anybody needed another 6-minute Neil Peart drum solo this week. So I was like, started pushing buttons, and we're
amazed you didn't break everything.
I pretty much did. I did. I
don't know if the viewers watched it, but there was this part where I think it was after that you started pushing buttons. It was just me and Eric on the screen.
I was like, oh yeah, that's like,
I'm like, guys, I think we're early.
Well, so for the audience, right? So we were like trying to get Skype to work. It usually works, and then nothing was working. We can only see CCP Convict, and we couldn't see Mist, and we couldn't see Caleb, and then I forgot to reset some of my Stream Deck buttons, and I just started, pushing the buttons, and they weren't set up right. So that's where we are. So, and as far as the alcohol conversation, so people in the audience, I don't hear what they're saying until I turn them on when we do the show intro, and
which is so good.
It's hilarious. It's the best part of the show, honestly.
The best part is I can go back and
we get to do.
I can go back and I can listen if I want to. So yeah. So is your Goonal?
Convict's not got Goonals. Convict's in it.
Who cares?
Yes. It's
No, really?
my Imperium space friends.
You motherfucker! I had no idea.
Yeah, as soon as I got my characters back after the policy change, because otherwise I would have had to wait till February because I was a relatively new employee. But once that policy change came into effect, that got reduced to only 3 months. So from the day it came into effect, I was eligible to get my characters back on the spot. And since I don't have to hide my identity anymore, I was just like, cool, I'll just go ahead and join someone. So I shopped around for a little while and settled on the initiative.
Which corp are you in?
The graduates.
Okay, I'm gonna chill. I'm gonna be chill. That's what I'm gonna be. I'm gonna be chill.
Are you sure, McLeod?
I mean, inside I'm going, fuck yeah! But like, you know, I'm gonna be chill.
There you go. Now everybody knows. So, you know.
Yeah, apparently you need to turn Convict up a little bit, Eric.
Do I? Oh, we can
According to Twitch chat.
All right, I'll also move the mic a little bit closer.
That's much better.
But yeah, so if not that anyone's probably particularly interested, but back in about 2009, 2010, I joined a corporation in EVE called Intersun Freelance, and that was the corporation where that got me over the line. You know, where something finally clicked as an EVE player, when I just fell in with the right group of players. But awesome bunch of people having so much fun and exploring new parts of the game. And after a few years there, I wanted to go and play in SOV, so I migrated away from them and joined Australian Time Zone SOV corporation called Van Diemen's Demise, which at the time was an NC Dot. And I played that with them for a couple of years. But on my comeback to EVE since having joined CCP, I wanted to try life on the other side of the fence. And as it turns out, that corporation Intersun Freelance is now also in the initiative. And I initially was going to join them, but now that I'm EU-based, it seemed to make more sense for me to join a corporation that had a strong EU presence. So I joined TGRAD, and it still means I get to fly with the guys from that corporation when they're around.
So, do you have a Titan yet?
No, I disposed of my Leviathan some time ago. I may get another super carrier, but I don't know if I'll go down the Titan route again, just because having a Titan's like having a pet. It's a big responsibility, and I don't know if I'm always going to be able to make every single move up and those kinds of things. And playing catch up and supers on your own through nullsec is scary as hell.
That is a dangerous proposition to do.
Like, Convict has apparently missed the chain of keep stars in it is setting up at the moment.
Yeah. I'm used to deploying. We've got to deploy to the other side of the galaxy, though.
Yeah, we just drop keep stars now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the dream.
It's
keep
kind
stars
of
are cheap.
obscene.
So, keep stars are cheap. Do you know what else is cheap these days?
Titans!
What?
So,
tell us.
I was told when I was in our writers' chats that the Battle of Bitakar, you know, that big Titan massive brawl that got on the news and everything, 11 trillion ISK destroyed during that battle. Guess how much ISK value that would be if the battle happened today and there was no changes, but the same amount of stuff died?
$1.49.
Guess how much
Point
it is?
one is.
$1.49.
It'd probably be something around like the 5 to 6 trillion mark.
Wow, that was very close. That's close, actually.
Yeah,
That
it is
was really
actually.
close.
It's a 4.4. So the value of the battlefield has gone from 11 to 4.4 trillion in a couple of years.
I have a strong suspicion on who you've been talking to.
It was just casually thrown out there in the chat, and it was just like, oh, okay, that's a fun fact. I'll put that in my pocket for later.
Well, I've been looking at her calculating those numbers for the entire fucking week.
So,
I mean, inflation's a thing, and inflation isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just something that happens.
It's deflation.
yeah, this is deflation.
It's massive
Or
deflation.
deflation. Yeah, well, whichever.
same. This is
Same
like
thing. Yeah, you know.
Awful deflation. Like,
sorry, but you do know how less than and more than works. So what it is, it's gone down. It hasn't gone
No,
up.
no, I clearly don't, Mist. I clearly don't.
McLeod can't.
Okay.
Just shut the fuck up.
So
Try to figure out how to get a
It's today's
Quick
official
leadership.
phrase, McLeod, is "shut the front door." That's our phrase today. That's what we pinged out. Shut the front door.
All right, well, that too. Words to that effect.
Shut your flappy pie hole.
It's only because Goon's
Flappy,
back
flappy.
doors are
Hey,
so
have
low,
those
right?
have those dogs eaten you yet, Horrendous? Are you okay?
No, I'm
Okay,
fine. I got the door closed.
not dead by dog yet.
Dogs don't even remember.
Gnawing,
They're dogs.
just gnawing on his finger right now.
Ah, okay. I actually think I did see an article today, or not today, but last couple days that, it was titled something like, "Yeah, it's true. If you die, your cats will eat you." It was
Yes,
something
they
like
will.
that.
Cats are one of the two animals we surround ourselves with that have no compunction at all about consuming human.
Yeah, I remember heard a thing where it was like a cat will wait X amount of time to eat you, but a dog will wait like X amount of time, which was 5 times longer than a cat. Hence,
Yeah.
it was probably just an argument why dogs are better than cats or something. But yeah, that's
Yeah, dogs have to wait until they're really hungry, and there's nothing else to eat. Cats, if you're the convenient meat, you're the convenient.
Are you
Yeah.
leaving out pet pigs? Because I'm pretty
No,
sure.
I
that pigs would
also
eat
I said the other was pigs.
okay.
Yeah, he said no compunction whatsoever, cats and pigs.
Yeah.
Dogs actually will wait and starve a bit before they eat you.
they'll do it, but they'll feel bad about it.
Yeah,
Remember,
exactly.
After you throw the body in the wood chipper, give it to the pigs.
Okay. Important
Well, the
safety
thing
tip.
Thing is, cats are still
I'm learning
wild
so much.
animals.
Well, just to point out that pigs actually have 2 utilities more than cats. You can actually eat them, and you can actually train them. So get rid of your cat and buy a pig.
Well,
What?
you can
feed
train
a cat
cats
too
pretty
if you wanted to.
too, and
Mhm. You can
Chinese
train
food
cats to
places all over
fetch.
the world say you can eat cats.
Don't.
I think the thing that we should take away is the fact that cats have figured out how to basically trick people into thinking that we've domesticated them.
I'm just going to point out that from pigs you get bacon and crackling, so they win all the time.
I'm sorry, but you don't get it's not Christmas Day. You don't get a beautiful turkey. You don't then cover it in cat, do you? No, you streaky bacon, and then you put that back in for how many hours long? I don't know. I don't cook Christmas dinner.
Do you cook at
It's
all?
fine.
I mean, other than oodles of noodles, or
No.
Okay, just
You
checking.
don't trust us with
Pigs
cooking.
won't keep the vermin away from your house.
See, even turkey have more utility than cats. They will actually guard your home.
Oh yeah, but turkey is just like bland, though, when you try and eat it. So, yeah.
Why do we always end up talking about food on this fucking show?
I have
don't
no
know.
idea. Comics in there.
I don't know.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, but we do have CCP Convict here,
Yes.
and having CCP
And
Convict here, there is a matter that I have wanted to ask him a question about for the last few weeks.
No one's anticipated this question at
So,
all.
No,
Go
no.
ahead.
Convict.
Fight.
A little while ago, you posted a certain thread. We had an exchange on Reddit You said something, and now I have a really important question for you. All right? How was your Christmas?
My Christmas was fantastic. Thank you for asking. It was my first one away from home, but I went over to CCP Larrikin's house and had sort of a Christmas lunch there with a whole bunch of other sort of, foreigner/orphan types who were here, and yeah, it was a really nice.
Cool.
But do you have a follow-up question you'd like to ask?
That was all I had.
Is that like an Aussie ghetto of some sort?
What? An Aussie what?
Larrikin's house. Larrikin's house.
Larrikin's house is an Aussie ghetto.
Oh yeah, I suppose CCP Bartender was there as well, and he's also Australian. But yes, there were several other devs that sort of added to the cornucopia of nationalities that were represented.
There is one question we could jump into, and I think it might be something you might have been alluding to. But have you heard that CCP are launching forums so they don't have to use Reddit anymore?
That's an awesome lead. But like I know what Horrendous has been asking me about, and it was about the inadvertent threadnought that I created on /r Eve a couple of weeks ago.
Come on.
It was. It absolutely was.
You've made it clear in your follow-up responses that you will take it to the forums when you get through that thing.
Oh
I can respect that you have not yet gotten through that thing, because that's a lot of responses. And hey, you've got a job to do. So
yeah, I kind of want to just background that whole thing a little bit more for you. It wasn't like a strategic move or anything like that. I was literally we just come out of the new year, and like the Year in E video had just come out. And people were feeling really good about that. The world tour had wrapped up, and people were also expressing good feelings about the things that Team Talos was doing. And I just started to feel like I think the mood is moving in a good direction now. And so I thought I'd just go onto Reddit like I do often, and just do a little post and say, hey guys, just how are you feeling? Like, just to make sure I was taking the temperature of the room correctly. And I expected maybe I'd get like a dozen responses, and I'd be able to have like a little, several conversations back and forth in the comments with people. And it erupted, and I got almost 1,000 comments on it right now. And I've also had people sort of, DMing me, which is fine. I invited them to do that, and we've, been communicating that way. And it's just been so completely overwhelming to try and process everything that was there, that the actual thought of recreating that and going through this again on the E forums is a little bit daunting. I would still like to do it. In so far as what Arenda said about the platform that I chose to do that on, being Reddit, I absolutely accept his criticism too harsh. His remarks about that. He was like, "Why did you do this on Reddit? Why did you turn to that community? Why didn't you do it on the official E forums?" And the answer to that is kind of simple. I'm just a bit dumb, and I probably should have gone there in the first instance to do it. Speaking for myself, though, as a player for such a long time, the main communities that I used to hang out in were Reddit, Twitter, and Fail Hip Challenge. That's sort of where I went to communicate with players. And now that I actually work at CCP, I understand and appreciate I can't have that quite narrow a focus anymore. And in large part due to Arendis calling that out correctly, I'm turning my attention a lot more to the EVE Online forums, reading more of the threads there, replying more frequently, and I'm going to try and give that an equal share of time that I do with all the other platforms that I pay attention to.
Can I just do a small follow-up on that? Because I would like to ask if you're going to try and reverse the trend of pulling all the communication stuff out of the hands of CCP and maybe try and actually pull it back under your own control, because I think you've been losing a lot to new and upcoming technologies, whether we're talking Slack or Discord or Reddit or any of these things. It's pretty much Twitch. It's pulled all the conversation away from CCP's control, and I think that's actually detrimental to the game, and it's really bad for the mood and the tone of the communications.
Yeah, we whenever we publish, like for example, patch notes or a dev blog or often news items, we have a complimentary thread usually on the EVE Online forums to gather feedback, which the devs monitor, and on Reddit as well, separate conversations usually spring up there because players will cross-post that news, and there'll be a whole second community with different perspectives, and you have to monitor that. And you're right, like the range of platforms has exploded where people discuss things, because it's also now like Twitch streams like this where you know guys like you get together and pick things apart that have happened all the time. There is so much to consume on so many different platforms. It's really hard to keep your eyes on all of them, but I do agree with the sentiment that the primary one for us should probably be the Forums, since that is our home. We control that. It's official as it gets, and we need to engage in more. I personally need to engage in conversations there a lot more.
Because it's generally that if you congregate primarily on your own platforms, right, the players will come there as well, right? The reason that they go out more and more is because you're kind of letting them. At least that's the feeling that I get.
Would you stop chasing that bug?
Mist is now acting out the life of a cat. Live on
Yes. Careful,
so I was cleaning one of my metal rods that I used to glue plastic models to, and I set a little bit too much on fire, so I was wanting to clean the smoke so it didn't set off the fire alarm, because that'd be very embarrassing.
It would also be hilarious, so...
It really would.
Please go on.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm just looking at the Twitch chat. WoW was the first MMO.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
Arguably, was it Ultima Online? Was the first commercial one?
Yeah, see, this is trolling.
Oh, okay.
WoW is
assumed
the only MMO that matters, obviously.
Can we say that whilst we got an Eve?
Yeah, we can. Eve's not an MMO, it's a reality simulator.
I heard a question mark at the end of that convict. It was Meridian 59.
Oh, that sounds familiar. Yeah, that does ring a bell.
This is your Q renders. This is where you say multi-user dungeons were there before any of that bullshit.
Well, yeah, but they weren't technically MMOs. They weren't massively multiplayer.
Right.
I'd also like to acknowledge Socially Obsolete as being perfectly correct in Twitch chat, that pineapple was in fact the first pizza topping.
And we're back to food.
This always happens. Sorry.
I'm not gonna let you bait me into a pizza discussion, Dirk. It's not gonna happen.
And I mean, like, we can keep talking about this if you want. I just want to follow up. One other thing I was going to say is that the developers do engage or do read Reddit, our EVE forums, Twitter, and everything a lot, even if they're not actively posting. The day after I kicked off that Reddit thread, I was in the staff kitchen for lunch, and I had 2 or 3 different people approach me going like, hey, I started reading that thread you put on Reddit, you know, like, yeah, some interesting things came up. But they also monitor what happens on the EVE Online forums as well. You'll tend to notice that well, there's a lot of devs at the company that work on a lot of different things. You'll notice that certain devs will come out to respond to certain features and changes that people are discussing when it's sort of like within their umbrella or their particular area of expertise, or they've had their fingerprints on it and those kinds of things. So it is kind of situational who and when replies to the threads, although they get a lot of eyeballs from the people at the company. It would be foolish if we didn't pay attention.
Yeah, I thought it was one of the best posts I've read from CCP in a long time. I mean, I thought it was the perfect post at the perfect time.
Oh, thank you for saying so. And I know on previous episodes, Eric, you and a few you in particular, but a couple of the other guys on the show have been sort of like, you know, it's like I feel like his heart's in the right place. And yeah, it was sincerely. I was just sort of like trying to make sure that I wasn't getting too far off base with my own sort of optimism when it comes to how, you know, the way things are going at the moment.
There's a natural follow-up to that regarding CCP and streaming content. Are you guys considering doing more of that, especially now when you can actually play and do things more actively with the community?
Well, we've had the CCP Twitch channel there, which we've only really revived in the last year or so for World Tour events and when we're doing live events and things like that. Now, I'm going to tie this into something I said on Reddit, where I have to be super careful about raising expectations. But yeah, you may have noticed that CCP was hiring a couple of months ago for a project manager that involves streaming. That's not a secret. What shape that's going to take, I can't really discuss, but we would like to make more use of that CCP Twitch channel and sort of open up the company a little bit more. Like, I used to love the 07 show. When I was a player, I would never miss it. It was fantastic, and it was great to put faces to names of developers. And I think sometimes when you have an entity like CCP Games, if people are frustrated about something that's been changed or hasn't been changed, it makes it easier for people to empathize with the company if they know who they're if they get to see the devs speaking passionately about the product on things like the 07 show, for example. So it would be great to open up the company a little bit more and get more devs out there rather than just the same 4 or 5 talking heads that you see from CCP on shows like this, myself included, all the time.
Yeah,
Sounds great.
I think there's an interesting point there about the 07 show and it being a way to kind of normalize yourselves as a company and as individual developers and stuff. And I do think that as happens when all of these things happen. The 07 show died, and there was a huge community outpouring of, no, please don't, bring it back, resurrect it. We want to see more of that kind of stuff again. And these are the kind of things that we want to see CCP as an organization doing a bit more of always. The community for Eve isn't necessarily all of the players. And I say that kind of cautiously because there are some players who don't engage. They come and they play Eve and they do their mining or their mission running or whatever, and they don't necessarily join player corporations. They don't interact on the forums or what have you. They don't come to the real life events. And those people are kind of less interested in the social aspect of Eve, and that's why I say, not all Eve players are part of the Eve community, but the actual community is what keeps a lot of people around, and it's kept a lot of people around through things that have largely been considered negative. I'm not going to ask for your comments on the blackout or anything, but that was largely considered from a player perspective to be controversial at the very least. And so I think reviving that could be particularly interesting. And obviously we have to get you on record on the show with this question. But other community events that really kept people engaged with the game and where they wanted to be playing was a lovely little tournament that was...
Yeah, the Anger Game.
Well, the Anger Games are all on Sothersill. It's Sothersil's fault we don't have Anger Games anymore.
Oh, come on!
Right. What's your stance on blaming Sothersill for the Anger?
I completely endorse this approach.
Right, there we go.
I'm not sure what we're talking about, but yeah, I'll go with it. Seems to be the mood of the crowd.
But yeah, more seriously, the Alliance tournament, obviously it was put on hiatus last year because of the Invasion tournament needing so many resources and being such a massive endeavor that you pulled off fairly well, in my opinion.
Okay, so...
Any news?
Sorry, finish your question. No news, I'm afraid. The thing I was referring to in my previous answer was in that, I believe, that same comment thread, someone mentioned the Alliance tournament, and I gave an answer to the effect of something. We hope we have some good news for you this year or something like that, and that was interpreted as a as like a sly sort of wink that she's coming and watch this space, and I quickly had to dive back in afterwards and be like, whoa, sorry, that's not what I meant. I mean, the Alliance tournament is very close to the hearts of a lot of people who play Eve, and it's also content for a very particular type of player as well. We know in the past for Alliance tournaments, there's people who essentially just resub 6 months in before the Alliance tournament, so they can start training with their fleet mates and to field a team. And it's a long and storied competition. I've spent countless nights on the couch at like 4 a.m. in Australia trying to watch it as well. The main problems with the Alliance tournament in terms of being able to present it again easily, so there's a couple. A big one is the tool. The tool that we use to administer the Alliance tournament is very outdated right now, very arcane, because it wasn't sort of designed with ease of use in mind, and it was kind of like, I guess, hacked together, and that has just kind of been adrift for a little while. And so in order to do a new Alliance tournament before anything else, there would have to be some development room freed up where somebody could take responsibility for this tool and bang it into shape. The other big problem, of course, within CCP right now is resourcing. Lots of people from all over the company volunteered their own free time to engage with the Alliance tournament and make it happen as a passion project. But between, say, the last AT and this, right now, a big part of that was shouldered by the community team. And right now, the community team is just myself and CCP Dopamine. And back when we did previous Alliance tournaments, we had 6, 7, 8 people on the community team. And so that volume of work, even though it is shared with other people in the company who volunteer to step in terms of the groundwork, the organizing, the coordination of it, even just running the stream requires a big crew. We don't have the internal resources to make that work. If we were to try and bring the Alliance tournament back, like a 1-for-1 copy of its previous iterations. So that's kind of the state of the Alliance tournament right now. It's going to take a lot of effort and work to do something with tournaments, and we just haven't had the opportunity to properly devote ourselves to that. So we don't want to do it half-assed. We want to have like a good Alliance tournament if we have one come back. And I know it's a huge sticking point, and like these constant non-answers an absolute drag, but I'm afraid that's all I can tell you on that front.
But yeah, no. I would just like to just point out, because I kind of have to do a CCP here, right? Because to me, it just feels like really mismanaged time from the CCP side. Because when you think about it, right, you couldn't choose a worse time to actually discontinue something like the tournament. When you're rolling out in a country like Korea, when you're rolling out things like filaments and the new network trade, right? All of these things would have played extremely well into a whole new way of doing esports, and then using that whole platform to actually market in the new markets. So to me, it just seems like one of those drunken stumbles that CCP tends to do when they have great ideas, but they pretty much launch them in the wrong order, or always with this misstep that breaks everything, and everyone just hurts from it, including the player base.
I'd say probably CCP would get a bigger bang for their buck, not necessarily bringing the AT back with all that overhead convict, but just allowing Sothrasil to have the tool that works to run his little anger games would go a long way, because he'd be slightly less angry.
Eric, the problem there is you're actually adding more problems if you want to allow player tournaments, because then you also need to change the tournament server in a way that it allows login without two-factor authentication, because that's a big issue right now. If you want to hand out login details to people for that server, you need to handle all of the two-factor authentication for all of the accounts that you hand out.
Yeah, like the tool is, as Convict pointed out, it's old, it's arcane, it's also broken as all get out.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Put too fine a point on it, but
if you fix the tool, right, you don't need all the overhead of the community team to run an AT. right?
It's not that simple.
Noisy hands.
As he said, you know, it requires a lot of dev resources.
Yep.
I appreciate everything that he said. You know, I knew that was going to be the answer. I just wanted to make sure that while we had him here, we put him under the microscope on that topic just a little bit.
But maybe
fair enough too.
Maybe we could get some news on another competition. Anything about CCP Games this year?
Yes.
Oh, CCP Games. That was the event from FanFest in 2018 where we capped everything off. We're heads down in organizing FanFest at the moment. This is another one of those things I was talking about. It's like you go from one project to the next, from the world tour to organizing FanFest, and then something like Plex for Good springs up in the middle of it, and so you've got to pay some attention there. There's a lot of spinning plates at all times. I don't think that CCP Games is going to make a comeback as it was in 2018, but we have been talking about like a special event for FanFest, like we do every year.
And Soft.
I mean, Games was an absolute hit.
Soft, let's make sure we have this actually correct. All right, it was CCP's CCP Games.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Thank you. Yeah. It was fantastic. That was actually 2018 was the first FanFest that I missed in like 5 years or something. I had to watch that from the couch. But it looked like it was really, really cool. But it would be easy to go back and essentially, just redo it. But and who knows, that might be what ends up happening. But like, we also want to like try and bring some variety into it, because usually it's slightly different every year. There was the Worlds Collide tournament, like showdown, which was between the Serenity and the Tranquility server one year. We had Eva Destruction, we had chess boxing. So I think the mood is to go for something new. But if CCP Games was such a hit, then I don't know, maybe we bring it back again. It's good to know.
It was kind of hilarious.
There is something to be careful about when if a decision is made to bring it back, though. I mean, Elise Randolph in a pink jumpsuit with a cream pie on his face. It's going to be hard to top that.
I know, right? And giving all of his answers Jeopardy style.
So yeah,
so good.
How are you enjoying that other side of the curtain, though, with the whole FanFest thing and the Invasion tournament last year? You know, you were a player, you went to a lot of these events. How are you enjoying like being one of the ones involved in organizing that stuff?
I'm actually really, really enjoying working at CCP. A few people have asked me this, and I feel like it's probably the best job I've ever had. I feel like I had like a fairly smooth introduction to the role, though, because for several years I had worked with CCP in the context of, say, like FanFest as like a player host on camera, and also engaged with them organizing Eve Down Under, and met them at numerous FanFests and E-Vegases. And by the time I actually walked in the door with my suitcase in my hand, there was a lot of people at the company that I would have considered like a personal friend. So it was probably a softer landing for me than, say, somebody who might have just like come to CCP from some other part of the industry, not being familiar with the company or anything like that. In terms of it's in terms of now being involved with the things that I used to participate in with a player, it can be a little bit bittersweet, because I don't think anyone would come to this role without like a head full of ideas and things they would like to be able to do. But of course there are time realities, there are budget realities, some things that there are also roadmaps that need to be adhered to and things like that. So you don't always get to do. Yeah, we do. It's crazy. I know.
Now you've triggered
we
no, horrendous. They have roadmaps. They just have only ever shared roadmaps for building roadmaps.
I'm sorry. We have there are plans in play that sometimes the things that you would like to do don't align
plans
with. And
roadmap.
I didn't say.
See, I told you.
But there are fantastic opportunities there to do really cool things with community, and like this Plex for Good is one thing. The players
I'm so
really
glad it's back.
Yeah, me too, man. Like the players started clamoring for that, and internally as well, we were like, oh, should we do a Plex for Good? When was the last Plex for Good? And it was like, oh my god, it was like 4 years ago or something like,
4
that.
or 5
And
years
it's like,
ago, yeah.
Yeah, and so in a fairly short span of time, when the decision was made to actually do a Plex for Good again, we had to like pull it all together. We basically had to start over because not many of the people, many of the people who were involved in the previous ones have kind of just like rotated out of the company and things like that. So it was a little bit touch and go to get the launch sorted, but we managed to get it all together and start the campaign. And so something like that is obviously something that gives me a huge source of satisfaction. Being able to do something like that or be involved with something like that at my workplace, especially obviously I'm a little bit Australian, so it's kind of personal as well. Feels good, and it's very rewarding.
Like there are moments and situations that I remember from the previous Plex for Good campaigns that it's just so Eve, but just so wholesome as well, right? For example, and I know that as a company you may not, as a representative of a company, you may not be in the position to be able to be like, yes, more of this please, but there's this kind of wholesome but Eve-like aspect of pirates in low sec ransoming people, their ships, unless they actually send Plex to CCP on their Plex for Good campaign. It's just so Eve, but just so wholesome at the same time.
Eve players gonna Eve, and and we've already seen on yesterday morning, I want to say, yesterday morning there was the big Australian time zone brawl in EULA with hundreds of people turned up to shoot each other in the face. In about 20 minutes from now, Darkshines is organising a public fleet to basically sacrifices a Nitra dreadnought. It'll be the first one that's been destroyed in game, and has gone so far as to if you want to bring people in, we can organize access for bridges and things like that. Just let's forget the space politics and all the antagonism and stuff like that, and just get together to do a good thing, and then go back to shooting each other in the face afterwards.
I mean, goons are even shooting blues tonight, so
Yeah, we've told goons that you're completely free to shoot us if you want to shoot us. That is fine, and we'll probably do the same. So,
shooting blue. I mean, that's unprecedented.
It's a favorite pastime.
Valrat would be in his element. He'd be loving this.
Shoot blues, tell Valrat.
Yeah.
Oh, and Convict, just a small question. Could you relay a request for us? We really want that Kill 2 stream to come on soon.
CCP Rise?
Yeah.
Could you unpack that a little bit more for me? I'm not familiar with this.
Well, we need Kill 2 to go on stream with his Kill 2 character and actually start killing people, or rather get killed.
Oh, right, like the good old days, except it'll be on Twitch instead of YouTube videos. Yeah, right, okay. I know he was
increased resolution.
I know he was super active especially over Christmas and New Year's with the filaments. He loved those things. He was taking fleets of devs out on the reg to shoot people, and I think out of that, CCP Oracle, for example, who was one of our brand people, and she's not she wasn't a heavy Eve player. From that experience, she made it her personal quest to get a solo kill mail, and she basically just went out PvPing solo every night over her Christmas break to try and make that happen. I don't know if she achieved it though. I'll have to find out.
Can we get a kill board stats or something from the developers so there's some competition so we can keep up with who's actually able to play this game?
That would be actually pretty cool. Kind of like that. I'm going to speak to analytics, probably CCP Larrikin, prior to FanFest, because I was going to try and gather some data about CCP developers playing the game, and it would include hours logged in and number of kills and all those kinds of things, and just to let you guys know, what we've been up to. But having something ongoing, established, that might be cool. Maybe I could even speak to Squiz on Z Killboard and say, here's a list of characters which are CCP player accounts that we're okay being public with, and maybe he could set up just a separate a link which just filters to all those characters so people can see what sort of activities we've been engaged in.
He'd
Yeah,
probably be down for that.
and a small trophy that could be handed out at FanFest or at events. That would be so
Oh,
cool.
to the dev who the killing. We just might as well. We just give that to CCP Rise right now. Like, you know, it's just...
top PvPer, top losses.
No. You can't have top losses because then that just forces people to
kill lost mail.
We should maybe give a, you know how we did the your year in E video and we had like the your nemesis thing. Maybe we find CCP's nemesis, like the player who has killed the most devs without realizing it or something like that.
Oh my god, a video like that showing the stats from the devs would be amazing.
Also,
actually, I'm gonna make a note.
Most amount of kill mails on as as a third or as like a low a low damage dealer. Not a high damage dealer, but a low damage dealer.
Most kills horde on. Is that what you're talking about, McLeod?
Basically, yeah.
We need the biggest dev killer of the player base, right? In your stat.
Yeah, because if you're actively hunting them, then you're going to be dealing a lot of damage. That's the thing.
I really like that. Some of these ideas. This could be fun.
I kind of wanted to actually ask you, Convict, about that. Sort of about the whole, devs basically being a little freer to be able to play the game without issues of being found out. Like, how is that? Like, have you been able to get a sentiment of like how positive that has been to the devs at CCP so far? Like,
well,
they're gone down.
Yeah, well, overwhelmingly, when the proposal was created internally at CCP, the number of comments on it of people just saying this would be great, I can't wait, I've basically had to retreat into my like solo alt corp and mine all the time because I can't join, this alliance or that alliance because they'll want to go through all of my APIs and sorry, that's an old term now. All my alt characters and stuff like that, and just the risk of exposure is too great. When I spoke about it at EVE London on stage, I showed a slide which just had like a random selection of quotes from developers who had commented on that devlog. I don't know if I can find it in a reasonable amount of time, but it was warmly embraced by the company. I know for a fact now there are probably about maybe half a dozen people at the company that I personally just kind of like have the water cooler conversations with on the reg about EVE Online and what have you been up to and how's that deployment going, and it's like I saw you were at this battle, how did it shake out? So my sample size for post policy change is actually kind of small, and the things I was talking about before, the statistics that I was going to gather for and present at FanFest, initially the idea for me pulling that together was just going to be for our information, like has the policy change had a meaningful impact on the amount of hours played and all those kinds of things. And we can probably package that up and present it to you guys too, so that'll be nice. It would be good to find out, but apocryphally, just sort of hearsay from conversations, it's been really, really positive.
Oh, that's awesome, dude.
And you get points for using that as a word, actually.
Okay, I've got a question that has been just poked at me in another venue. That is actually something that, shockingly enough, may actually be within your bailiwick.
Everyone's pulling up the thesaurus this day.
What? No, that's a word.
That's just a normal horrendous speech.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
McLeod, you can't do maths, you can't do words. We have you on here for a reason, but I'm not sure why anymore.
I think you can pretty much tell that I'm British.
So, on the theme of sort of coming back to the whole CCP using the forums and otherwise, the whole communications thing. World News, the EVE World News channel, is not even on the articles.
No, it's not. And the reason for that is there's there's essentially a couple of different publishing avenues that we use at CCP, and this predates my time here, so I might have some of these details not quite right. But for example, if I'm going to go and publish patch notes or a dev blog or a news item, we do that up through one platform. But if you want to publish world news or what's the other thing that uses it? Oh, the third-party developers blog. Those are still on the old system. I don't know why, for whatever reason at the time, they were never migrated over to the new system. And so that's why the world news doesn't appear alongside the dev notes and the news items, and sorry, the patch notes, the dev blogs and the news items, is because they're not properly integrated into that system. That's not great, obviously. It would be nice to actually finish that migration process. I don't know why it wasn't completed at the time, but by way of explanation, at least, that's kind of why that situation exists. But I can't really unpack it any more for you than I'm afraid.
Okay, it's just there was one other sort of thing about world news and where it's not that it probably could really use being. And again, I don't know if this is something you can address, or it's probably nothing that you can get into with us here because it may never even occurred to anybody. But you can't actually find out what's going on in the game.
Yeah,
like there's no in-game way to get it. Like, could it at least wind up in the agency, maybe?
That's a very good suggestion. I mean, I can kind of understand why you would externalize, non-immersive or immersion-breaking things like patch notes from the game, but world news absolutely should probably be in there. Yeah, thank you for that suggestion. I'm going to add it to my list that I've been running here and see if we can incorporate that. The agency is the perfect place for it, actually. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. I'll pass that up the chain.
Awesome.
Can we just have that on the calendar that we had a good idea on this show?
Hey, there's a first time for everything, right?
And a professional said, yes, it's a good idea. Not us having a massive circle jerk.
I think calling me a professional is a little bit flattering, considering,
Well, you do get paid for it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. In that context, sure. But in that case, but it's still only like professional wrestling. It's like,
I mean, people will get paid for a lot of things.
Really doing it.
Just as a point, people get paid for a lot of things. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're good at it.
We were trying to compliment Convict here, and you just thanks, thanks, Dirk. Thanks.
As I pointed out pre-show, I thought the main reason Convict came here was because he knew the kind of people we were already, and knew that
Eric.
Yes, sir.
Each other mercilessly.
Yes, sir.
Goes by the name Dirk. It's this little thing you stick between people's ribs. Come.
That's also a fair point.
Did we ever determine is he Dirk 1 or 2 or 3 or 4? I mean, which Dirk is he?
Sober Dirk.
Over Dirk.
He's sober.
Sober Dirk. Sober Dirk.
Yes, I am sober Dirk on Open.com.
Yes, Convict. What?
Do we go by character creation date or something to establish Dirk's supremacy?
No.
No, it's between him and Dirk McGurk.
Yeah, no, I know Dirk McGurk well.
It's definitely drunk Dirk and sober Dirk.
But we also have John Wood, so.
Have whom?
But he never shows up here.
He's in TNT, so.
So he doesn't count. Did you tell Whippler that?
I didn't say that. You did.
I've spent many an Eve Vegas at the Heart Bar with Dirk and Mrs. McGurk and Drayden and those guys. We've got a pretty good rapport. So
no shots fired. Right?
I'm sorry, Dirk here, but Dirk McGurk is probably the number one Dirk in my heart. But I don't know. We just haven't spent a lot of time together.
I proposed a new naming convention. the Dirk and the Cooler
Dirk Fest.
Dirk and Cooler Dirk.
I don't want to know which is which in that situation.
The Cooler Dirk sounds like the Dirk that you will find in a cooler.
Wow, that just went really dark.
At least we're not feeding them to pigs, horrendous.
Oh, jeez. Not that conversation again.
Yeah.
Do we have that conversation on air? Or was that just pre-show? I can't even remember. That's how bad it is.
It was on air.
Okay.
Whole cats versus pigs. Yeah, that's all on it.
I just saw a question in chat from Sikander about whether or not I think moving to San Diego is a good idea or not. I think it's probably going to be a great result. I'm hoping it's going to be a good event. I know Eve Vegas had been going on where it was for so long that I'm absolutely one of these people. Like I said, I went to Vegas like 4 times as a player, 4 years in a row, and had the best time there. Made so many friends in the player base. I totally understand. There's like a really powerful sentimental connection to Vegas as an event. But what we've seen from the World Tour is that, to use the cliche, it's like if you build it, I think going to a new location and trying it out will be fine. It looks like we haven't lost Vegas either, because it started as a player-run event when Zapperwork kicked it off, and it's going to be taking place again this year, and I believe it's being organized by Goon Swarm. Is that October? Yeah.
There's a group of people from across the game. It's not just a Goon Swarm
Brilliant
thing. We've got we've got people like, let me just log back. Let me just check our service. We've got the Streamfleet guys involved. We've got Grey Gal going on at the moment. We've got Blastum, who I know a few people know.
Blastum the Hell?
Yeah. We've got Gibberish, who's obviously now in Legacy at the moment. We've got guys from all across. It's not like a Goon thing. It's open to everyone. Brilliant. There will be more information coming at some point in the next little while. We've got some stuff that's being finalized at the moment, and so should be more information coming soon.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So another way to look at this is now North America, you're going to have 2 major events every year instead of just sort of the one in Vegas that CCP organizes. And I hope this isn't a controversial thing to say for like my colleagues working at CCP, but I mean, player gatherings are near and dear to my heart. I ran Eve Down Under for a while, and I was involved in several other Eve Down Unders, not as the primary organizer. And I've mentioned I've been to FanFest a bunch of times, Vegas a bunch of times. I went to a bunch of destinations on the World Tour. For me, the actual the meat of any player gathering isn't what happens on the stage. It's not the presentations and the PowerPoints and all the talking, things like that. It is the sitting around in the heart bar, hanging out with the players, throwing axes, hanging out by the pool, doing all that kind of stuff. And even if CCP is not going to be at Eve Vegas, if we're not presenting Eve Vegas this year, we still want to support it. We'll send some people along. We will have some, presentations and something to show you guys, I'm sure. But Vegas can now sort of go from being this like big scale, polished sort of corporate event back to its roots, which is just a bunch of players hanging out together, having a few drinks and sharing stories.
Yeah, there's 2 things I want to say to that. One, you've just opened a can of worms, because I am going to quote you on that.
Which part? Like
the bit about wanting to send people, and you're sure that you'll have something to show us, and I am going to quote you on that.
I don't know if I said we would have something to show you. I said maybe a presentation.
We'll have a presentation or something, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You said the words I'm sure.
Okay, fine. So that's fine.
You're getting quiet on that
or something. They've got a lot of room with or something.
Mm-hmm. It could just be one of the analytics people showing you graph porn for 45 minutes, which is probably actually one of the most interesting.
It could be one guy. It could be one guy from ISD running around with a handy cam.
And I'll be forgetting that pretty much every event worldwide started out as a player event. It's only FanFest at Iceland that is an original CCP thing, right? Everything else was originally something that players actually started.
Yep, absolutely. Eve London, Eve Down Under, Amsterdam, they were all organically player-spawned events that just sort of grew to a certain scale, and CCP was like, oh, there are a lot of players hanging out at these events. Maybe we should send some people, just to go and hang out and talk to these guys. Last year with the Invasion World Tour, we worked closely with all those established player events, because all the stops, with the exception of the Finland one on the World Tour, were, like in collaboration with established player events that was already happening. And by taking those resources out of FanFest and putting them to those events, we managed to just sort of like elevate the scale a little bit, get more people along. Going forward next year, those events that are recurring will revert to being primarily player run, but hopefully as a follow-on from the Invasion World Tour, the new baseline for attendance is going to settle at a higher mark than it was before CCP got involved. That would be like, one of the ultimate wins of the entire project.
So
is San Diego going to be something that builds on an existing player event, or is it something new that CCP is doing? Because this touches back on something that you just said about the World Tour.
Yeah, well, the San Diego event, that location was chosen because we know just from our data there is a huge, concentration of EVE players in Southern California. There are player gatherings that happen in sort of LA. There's like a couple of meetups around the city. There's Pasadena one, and I think there is maybe a San Diego one. I'm not sure if this is connected to any established player events because I don't think they're not sort of what sort of like Amsterdam and things like that had grown into, where they went from just being like a casual player gathering into like a ticketed event with a program and all those kinds of things. So I feel it's correct to say that this is going to be like a new CCP driven event rather than sort of a World Tour style, joining with something that's already established.
Okay, because you reminded us that all of this year's events, other than FanFest at home, were originally player events, and there was one other thing that they all had in common except for FanFest. Hilmar kept his pants on.
Well, there wasn't really the opportunity in any of the other ones, I don't think. But I mean, it's like you're in Finland. You're in a.
There's always an opportunity for anything in Vegas. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
so let's yeah.
I take your point. I spoke incorrectly then, but the Finnish event was obviously just in a player's house. This guy has a hot tub and he has a sauna, and so when in Kemion Saari, do as the Kemion Saarians. So yeah, it was actually a really fun event. It was my first player event as an employee of CCP. I literally showed up and they're like, "Are you going to Finland like next weekend?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool. Sounds great." And so
you didn't
we
even bother unpacking the suitcase.
Pretty much. I mean, at that time, I was just still living out of a suitcase, sleeping on a mattress on the floor. So it was like, this is going to be actually luxurious by those standards. And then they were like, oh, and by the way, that same Finnish crew is also doing their sort of like annual sojourn to Estonia the day after. So jump on a ferry with CCP Dopamine and go spend a night in Estonia with those guys. It was a really awesome introduction to CCP and the role. It was great.
So sounds like a great way to hit the ground running.
So there's we're actually out of time. I can't believe the hour's gone already.
Oh,
but
go away with that, Eric. We're never out of time.
I know. We could just, as long as it's not 4:00, we're good. The one question we did have, and I don't know if I was away when you guys asked it. Did you ask Convict how he got his name? Anyone?
No, but it's pretty obvious, isn't it?
I don't know.
He's from a prison island.
Yeah.
Is that it?
That's what I went with. Choosing your dev name's hard, actually. Like, I'm not going to lie. I've probably thought about it a few times over the years, but never really committed to anything. And I wanted to do this a sort of a semi-tradition with Australian developers to choose something which is like Australian-inspired. We've had CCP Drop Bear, CCP Larrikin, CCP Nullarbor. Few guys screwed it up, like CCP Logibro and CCP Bartender, although CCP Bartenders is actually an Australian reference in a certain kind of a way. But yeah, no, I just decided to go with Convict because it was a kind of an oblique Australian reference, and also players from the UK, Brits in particular, sometimes like to use convict as a friendly epithet directed at their Australian cousins. Yeah. So I thought I'll get out in front of that one. I'll lead with my chin on that, and that's why I chose it.
There you go.
I always like to say to an Australian that I meet in the UK, welcome back.
Well, it was a joke. There's a joke. A British tourist is visiting Australia, and he arrives at the airport and he's going through customs and he's having his passport checked and things like that. And the customs agent in the airport looks at him and says, "Do you have any criminal background?" And the English guy says, "I didn't know that was a requirement anymore."
That's good. That's good. I like it.
It's like when the German visits Poland. Occupation, now mate, just visiting.
Oh wow.
Oh.
Shots fired.
Is Soth still here?
Yes.
Yeah, he
Okay.
is.
Okay, he's behaving.
Sorry, I'm not allowed to laugh at that.
Okay.
We know you were laughing if you pushed it up button up.
That's on the banned joke list.
I wouldn't
Bad
be
joke list.
surprised if we actually had something like that.
A bad joke list?
No, a banned joke list.
Oh, banned joke. Probably somewhere. I don't know. We're not open comms. We don't have any banned anything on this show. What was that? Shots fired?
Nudity is still banned.
The only band that we've had is Rush recently. To be fair.
Oh
Rush.
yes.
Banned
We have.
Rush.
We have.
Oh, come on.
Eric just being slow there.
I'm
Especially given that he used the wrong intro today. You'd think he'd be on top of that one.
Wrong everything. I still haven't used my shot glass. I have to use that eventually. Eventually. Someday. So what are we going to talk about next, or are we done, guys?
I'm supposed to thank CCP Convict for all the time he spent sponsoring event content before he came to CCP. So, yes, a thank you from the event community.
Oh, is that an EVBet reference?
Yes.
Yes, New England's premier sports betting website, formerly.
Bring back proper gambling.
I'm going to let that one slide.
Yeah, you should.
It was funny.
You
It was funny you should
absolutely
mention that because I went on this bender a couple of nights ago, watching PvP videos on YouTube that I sponsored when I was doing the PR stuff for EVBet. Man, so many cool videos there. Somebody was talking about. There was a Reddit post about someone's favorite video, and I wrote in the comments, it's like Lord Servant's Solo Phoenix from the One Man Crew video, but it's been taken down off YouTube for, I guess, like a copyright strike on the music or something like that. And within like a few hours, another player responded, and he's like, "I got you, fam," and he just gave me a Mediafire link to the original video, and I was like, "Yes, no, I can finally watch it again."
Beautiful.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So, one thing I just want to throw out here, just in case we want to talk about it, is an actual thing in EVE that's happened kind of this week.
What?
Hold
Things don't happen in EVE.
Are we going to talk about Eve on this show? You sure?
I'm just throwing it out. Do you want to talk about it?
No, go ahead. Talk about it. Go ahead.
We can talk about it already. Tell us what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to talk about Shield Slaves.
You want to talk about what? You broke up on me.
And utterly how insane they are.
I mean, I remember someone writing about that it's never Shield Slaves until it's Shield Slaves.
Then it was Shields.
Wouldn't you know it was Shield Slaves?
I don't want to get all meta or anything, but how did you guys feel about the January release? What was your takeaway on?
Shield Slaves, which was a surprise.
I was, I mean, I've looked at a lot of conversations around it, and I was really happy with some of the stuff that was delivered. You know, obviously there's module tier side, there was the Nirvana implants, the Shield Slaves, which have, you know, sort of been floating around for so long they became a meme, and, you know, now here they are. And the Warhead stuff, it was great we saw people jumping to Drakes and whatnot, going to the Dragonor sites. I felt pretty good about it. I just, apart from the Shield Slave, well, even including the Shield Slaves, what in particular is do you feel about the Shield Slaves? Do you think they're OP or something?
They are a little OP.
Classes of ships, yeah.
Yeah. I've seen people posting like outrageous Komodo, you know, sort of hit point stats and things like that.
How about just straight Leviathans with 90,000 a second before tie-dye? Because tie-dye doesn't actually affect shield regen.
Doesn't affect passive shield regen. No, it doesn't.
There's a few balance issues that probably need to be tweaked there. I've got to say, some of the most interesting stuff about this January release for me, beyond the fact that WoW they actually followed through on Shield Slaves, which was not a thing that I'd expected in the next 6 months, probably at least, given that it was talked about again in Vegas, and there was this whole, well, it's one of these things that we've talked about and we've promised before, and we don't want to promise it again because we're not sure when we'll get to it. So I hadn't expected it till like later on this year. But one of the things that's been really interesting for me has been actually linking back to what Horrendous was saying about the world news earlier, watching some of the lore coming out of this and the way it's looping back, but also kind of, you know, there's a question about the Triglavian stuff in here as well, because obviously the Sansha are involved with the Tempest Dragonars here. Well, that's possibly not obvious to anybody, but Horrendous Bug goes to deny in this channel. But, you know.
Yeah, and I thought that was a great head fake. You put the Sancha logo in the dev blog. When the event comes out, it's all about the Dragonar, and then when you go to do the event, you go, "Oh, look, there's the Sancha."
Show. I don't want spoiler alert. Yeah, you run the sites, and after fighting a bunch of Kaldari terrorists, you end up having to take on the final boss in a nightmare. So, interesting things are afoot if you're interested in the lore and the RP side of things, and which I very much am.
I'm not an RP guy, but I'm very much like a lore guy. I like a good storyline, and this is like linking back to some of the stuff from like what 2013, 2014, that kind of era. It's a whole long progression, and I just think it's really awesome the way that that's played out.
And if this goes where it potentially might go, things could get absolutely insane. And I'm not gonna get into where it might go on the air because that would totally be spoilers if it happened.
Yeah, I actually consciously try to avoid finding out too much about the lore and the storyline. When I first arrived at CCP, I had a lot of nights at the office. That's where I came. That's how the whole. I don't know if you saw the presentation I did at Vegas about mildly interesting things. Basically come about because I didn't have anything at home, and the only PC I had access to was my work computer. So I'd just be in the office until late night, drinking coffee and doing things on the internet and trawling through like our network drives. And that's where I found a lot of the stuff I used in that presentation, but also our internal wikis where we publish all of our design documents and a lot of narrative stuff too. And when I started, I pounced straight into reading all of the sort of the lore that's held back, like the things that we don't mention in the dev blogs and stuff, explanations of things. But after doing that for 2 or 3 nights, I'm like, it's like it's kind of like eating a bunch of chocolate or something, and then it feels good while you're doing it, but then afterwards you're just like, like why did I do that to myself? So I'm trying to avoid finding out too much about where CCP Delegate Zero and CCP Burger and those sort of the Team Inkling lore guys are sort of taking things, because I want to experience it along with everybody else.
Speaking of going through old stuff, Dirk, do you have the link to that Kestrel?
The Kestrel image, it's probably in our Discord backlog. That would be where I'd look for it.
So we're gonna dig this thing up. This was a potential rework image for the Kestrel that one of CCP's art guys did, right around the time the Griffin and the Merlin got redone. And it's out there on his.
Done anything to the Merlin?
Not the Merlin. The Griffin and the Kitsune. Sorry, I was thinking.
It was for the.
It was for the Kestrel, and it totally, it doesn't really work with the way the Manticore went, but like this is absolutely the most beautiful freaking Kaldari frigate design I've ever seen. This has to go in somewhere. Please.
I'm gonna drop this in staff. Somebody drop it in the Twitch chat. And Eric, if you want to pull that up, that webpage and that image, this is really an incredible piece of effectively concept art. It's super detailed. It's been around for years, and I'm sure a lot of people will have seen it. But we we were neck deep in an article that Orentis and I published, and you know what? Fuck it, I'm gonna plug it. It's up on Imperium.news as of yesterday morning. We interviewed Team Talos's CCP master plan on Monday. It was like a bit more than an hour long session. It was some really good information, some really good conversation, and yeah, the article is well worth a read. I don't know if we've got a link for that we can drop in somewhere. If not, I'll find it.
Oh. I'll link the page that we're displaying here now.
Yeah, so there's the article that I'm talking about. But when Orendis and I were actually writing up the interview, we decided not to just drop the interview transcript, because that was a hell of a lot of words and many pages in Google Doc, and it was a bit kind of bouncing around. So we kind of brought things down, but one of the things that we sidelonged into is some of the old art stuff, some of the kind of old concept art, and we ended up rediscovering this Kestrel art, and it's
absolutely beautiful.
It's wonderful. We thought with like the antenna arrays and the big saucer and stuff, instead of the Kestrel and the Manticore, this would potentially have been a really fantastic Griffin rework.
The one that you're showing now, this Kestrel design.
Yeah.
Potentially. Although the Griffin did get a rework. So.
I think the Griffin rework is really, really cool. It looks so busy and technical. You know, kind of like you think an E-Warship should. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they connect.
I totally get keeping that. It's just,
yeah.
There's got to be some way to get that thing, to get that art in, that because that's just.
It is really, really cool. There's this is probably the first thing that you've mentioned tonight where I'm like, oh, I can't actually say too much about this, but we obviously are working through updating a whole bunch of different hulls in the game. You know, it kind of feels like the pace might be slow at times, but there's a really complex pipeline that Art has to work through to get like new hulls into the game. We've revisited some of the oldest and ugliest ones and updated them. I think probably the first example that springs to mind was when the Scorpion hull got redone in about 2010.
You say the Scorpion. That was actually one of the things that Orendis and I were talking about that evening.
Yeah, that hull looks amazing. It's my favorite hull in the game now, probably, especially the Scorpion. Kalakiotis skin. But
Scorpion
yeah,
looks so aggressive now.
It does. But Art has a roadmap of ships that they need to update, and just to sort of because a lot of the old models in the game also are not technically constructed properly, and can't be used for certain graphical effects and things like that are now available in the game, particularly with us moving into DX12 soon. So we need to rotate out the old stock, as it were, and refresh them as they go. But there's hundreds of ships in EVE Online, so it's just going to take a while. That's all. And hopefully, the Kestrel does pop out something like that. Although I will miss the Kestrel was my favorite ship as a new player, because I thought it just looked really cool with like the little 3 prongs on the front. So if the Kestrel does make its way into the game, I don't know if it'll be exactly like that or if they'll tweak it a little bit more, but we'll see. I think consistently the art guys at CCP are just absolutely some of the do some of the coolest work on the game, without a doubt.
Yeah, the art department does some really great work. No doubt.
Absolutely.
Except for like taking the solar sails away from us Minmatar pilot. I miss my solar sails.
We gave sails. They're radiators. Jeez.
We gave the fins back though to was it the Vagabond? And we took them off.
Oh yes.
Vagabond got its roll back. Yes.
That was amazing.
Pull that off. So and you got your engine trails back as well. In like when was that? Crucible. Remember they went away for a while. And right now I think Jeter's getting a big visual upgrade. That should look really impressive when it's finished.
Great.
Yeah, and they're always doing more work on like the stars, which look incredible when you're right up close to them with silhouetted ships. Like nothing looks cooler in this game than like a Citadel anchored right in front of like an orange star when you undock from it. It's just epic.
I mean, Okay, so I'm looking at Caldari frigates at the moment, given that we've pulled that image up again, and you know what? I'm thinking that it could possibly be a cool little replacement for the Condor and those related hulls, actually.
Yeah,
It's got those same kind of lines.
It is a bit more Condor-esque
missile
than
boats,
Castrol-esque, I think. Condors use rails. The Crow uses missiles, I think.
The Condor uses missiles, absolutely.
Oh, does it?
Bonus per level to light missile and rockets.
Is it bonus for rails as well, or is it purely missile
No,
boats?
purely missiles.
Today I stand corrected.
It's 3 launcher hardpoints, no turrets. The Crow, same missile hardpoints, and the Raptor. The Raptor's got turret hardpoint.
Ah, okay, so that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
But the Condor, however, has had a rework recently. That was remember how it used to be like really kind of like asymmetric and lopsided, and they kind of just like smoothed it out. So
I'm just kind of taking a
just
look and
spitballing. Yeah.
Is there some way that we can get this model in because it looks incredible?
Hopefully the work on that particular hull is on the roadmap. I just don't know what order, what place it is in, and when you'll be seeing it.
Yeah, for sure.
Has anybody else got anything they would like to discuss?
I just want to say right now that the event in F7C is ongoing.
Yeah, I've sort of got that stream just sort of open on my other monitor. I'm keeping an eye on it. I can't tell because it's a vertical monitor, so it squishes the window. Can someone see how many are in local?
There is currently
1,200. Sorry, you go, McLeod.
Yeah, 1,254.
Damn, that's great.
Nice.
I've got to say, mild leak from like a little while ago. One of our guys basically went, tie-dye, goons are coming. But
I hope you to submit a fleet flight notification for this and the node got reinforced.
Well, that's on Darkshines.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Darkshine's problem. But yeah, we sent like at least a full fleet and a half up there, so lots of blue shooting incoming.
Hey, shout out to Final Praetorian for his 28 months of subbing. We had a couple follows in there too. Just I can't find them all, but thank you for those who followed during the program today. All right. We want to go around the room one last thing. It is coming up on an hour and a half, and that's a long time for everybody.
That could last a half hour, Eric.
No, you got 8 minutes, and it should take 2. Okay. Let's start with Horrendous because he's on the top of the list. By the way, we have a lot of people that we didn't even tell people. Oh, the Mop resub, 19 months. Thank you, Mop. Go.
Last thoughts. Let's see. We covered pretty much everything from me, but since we were just on art, the Algos. The Algos is beautiful. It really should have been a supercarrier.
Oh God, yes.
I do take your point. I think that entire range of destroyers was inspired by like World War II vehicles. Like the Corax is meant to be like a U-boat, and the Bifrost was meant to be inspired by a tank, and the Algos, it looks like a B-24 or something. So it does actually look like some sort of a big craft just scaled down to a really small size.
All right. Barghost?
But
go ahead, Comic. Finish your thought.
Sorry, say again.
Finish your thought. Go ahead.
Oh no. I was just trying to remember what the fourth destroyer was modeled on.
Well, I mean, you got the Bifrost name wrong. That was actually
What did I say?
Talvar.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
The Bifrost is the Command Destroyer.
Is the Command Destroyer? Yeah. Oh, sorry.
The other one is the other one is the Heretics model. And the Heretic is the wrong. The Dragoon. No.
Yep.
No, the Dragoon's the other one.
The Dragoon is the other new one. The Heretic
the other
is the
one. Yeah.
The Heretic is the original.
Right.
was the original Umar destroyer. Yeah, the Dragoon was the one that was introduced along with the Telwa, the Korax, and the Elgos. And I think that was supposed to be some kind of like some sort of a boat. I think
it's got those kind of lines. Anyway,
all right.
Bar Ghost.
I was just gonna repeat what you said earlier, Dirk. Shield slaves, finally. I love them.
Say again?
Shield slaves. I love them.
Oh, right. Cool. Sweet. Yeah, and I know there's some very, very tanky Leviathans and things running around like that now. Nell with like Team Telos with their pace of iteration. Hopefully, if they'll have time to gather some data, figure out the optimal way to do some balancing around that. I don't know what their plan is. I'm not committing them to that. I don't know if that's even on their roadmap. But at least the opportunity now exists, and we've got a demonstrated. We've demonstrated like we've kept with that commitment of 2 weeks updates. So hopefully, when we say we'll take another look at it, it's finally starting to get to a place where the community goes, oh, okay, like we'll take your word for it because of X, Y, and Z. It's still early days on that yet, and we've got a lot more to do. We have a lot more work to do in order to sort of like build that confidence back. But I hope we're going in the right direction doing it.
Dirk, you said the R word again.
Oh dear.
Caleb, you're up.
Well, since I've not talked about economics and finance at all for about almost 90 minutes now, I think I should end with saying that I was disappointed. I was disappointed to underwhelmed with the January release. I was expecting something to help the current crisis in the macroeconomics of the.
All right, I'm sorry. That is like way beyond my my realm of experience when it comes to economic matters and that sort of stuff in game.
Don't worry, it's way beyond the experience of most of the people in this channel, never mind the player base.
I'm contractually obligated to actually mention it, especially in the wake of last week's Meta Show.
Contractually obligated. Hey, tell Rivera, if she wants to ask questions, she actually has to come on and ask. She can't ask them through you, okay? I see you looking over to the side.
It's not through me. That's not how it works.
Why do you keep looking to the side?
You just pissed that you didn't.
Are you gonna get hit with an electric shock if you don't ask the question? What's going on there?
Careful. He'll ask it in like Aramaic or something. I know what he's been studying.
Now I know why Eric is not coming to FanFest. He's afraid of fucking rerun.
No, I just don't want to go to Iceland, and I do.
You should come to Iceland.
I do one a year, and I go to Vegas, and there's no way in hell I'll go to San Diego because one West Coast trip's enough.
And come to Iceland.
I don't know.
I agree with Dirk. In any case, Dirk is going to get convict horribly drunk at FanFest, as far as I know.
I mean, that sounds like a good time.
Challenge accepted.
There you go.
He has to catch up with the other Dirk, right? 4 years, wasn't that what you said?
I don't need to catch up with nobody. I'm the sober one out of the pair of us. He's the one that falls downstairs drunk.
Who? What? Who falls down? I don't know what you're talking about.
Other Dirk.
I've never seen him fall
Drunk Dirk.
down. No, I've never seen him fall downstairs or anything. No. I think you're misnomer. Anyway, so
Drunk with a convict at FanFest sounds like a good time.
Well, Dirk, did you do your one last thing?
Not yet.
All right, you're
I
up.
thought
buddy.
we were offering CCP Convict.
He gets the final say of the entire show.
Fair enough. By
the way, these aren't necessarily questions to you, Convicts, just our comments.
I know. I don't have to respond to every single one,
but you're more than welcome to. Yeah. You're more than welcome to.
So yeah. First up, obviously, the January release. A lot of fun things there. I need to actually get out and load so I can try these sites to get myself some of these shield slaves, but definitely most hyped about the lore aspect and kind of some of the things that could be coming up on that. People, if they're interested, should definitely go digging out some of the old stuff regarding the Vimoshka Chorus and the Templar Dragonars. And yeah, just generally looking forward. If this is how we're kicking off Fight or Flight, I'm hoping against hope that it continues in the same way, and that the Q1 period of 2020 for Eve is going to be a lot of PvP changes that could be potentially good.
Okay. Cool. Mist, you're up. Hold it. First off, are you still like burning glue off tools, or are you done with that?
No.
Right.
We won't judge you for your addictions, Mist Warden.
That's not what I was insinuating, but yes, okay.
Yeah, right.
So I quite liked how CCP, especially Team Talus, this might be accidental or into purpose, was like, hey, Sancha, and everyone's like, well, better go farm those Sancha, and baited tests to go drop a keep star in the system to farm Sancha to get those tasty shield slaves, and then like, haha, by the way, you can get them in low sec. The question is, obviously, after the event ends, are they then going to be moved to an LP store, or is there going to be some downtime and then shield slaves and then going to be reintroduced? Do you have any idea about that at all?
Honest answer is I just do not know what the actual sort of ongoing plan for where you'll get BPCs for the Nirvana implants after the Dragonor event concludes. Yeah, I just don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's no worries. It's just I just love how everyone was like Sancha, better farmer, get all that LP up, and like, yeah, no, go to low sec and go do low sec stuff instead. It's quite hilarious and quite funny.
The Cloud.
I literally have no idea. I'm in the middle of doing a bunch of stuff, but
all right. Soth?
Just right. Is there any way that you guys could improve the communication between players and the community team a bit? For example, I've been running this tournament, which some might know, and with Logibro, with Guard, and with Dopamine, I sent them emails about this, and then had to wait literally months for a reply. I do understand that there's a lot to organize and a lot to make sure you have in kinds of information before you can give us a yes or no. But is there a way that we could at least get a I don't have an answer yet, but I've seen your message?
When was, just out of my interest, when was the last time you attempted to communicate with us on it?
I believe the last time was with CCP Dopamine last year, when CCP did ask for people to mail in if they're interested.
Would have been March or April time, surely.
Yeah, roughly about that time.
Right. First of all, I am incredibly sympathetic to what you're saying. I remember when I was, communicating with CCP to organize things for Eve Down Under or any of the other sort of player-inspired events. Sometimes the turnaround on answers could be really, really long, and it used to frustrate the hell out of me. And I was like, come on, it's just a simple question. Although now that I'm behind the camera, I can kind of see what was going on there, because there's just like constantly things coming in from multiple different channels, and sometimes things slip through the cracks. And I'm very sorry that happens, and I don't have a better reply for you than we goofed. Let me talk to you after the show about this, and we'll see if we can figure some things out.
All right.
All right. And I don't have anything. I got nothing. No, other than one of the comments I will make. I think one of the things that helps keep EVE Online fresh is all the work that the art department does in updating the graphics. I mean, it's an older game, right? We all know that, right? But when you look at the graphics and things like that, it doesn't look like an older game because they're constantly updating it. That amount of work, I think, pays serious dividends to the game. And so just, share that Convict. I think that's a really good thing. And then the final word goes to CCP Convict.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you so much for asking me to come on the show. I'm glad we could finally get it to align. I've had a really good conversation with you guys, and I would be remiss of me just not to plug Plex for Good one last time. I saw somebody linked the dev blog in chat. It was Eric Asmock.
No, it wasn't me. I don't think.
Yeah, someone linked the dev blog in chat before. Is to raise if you're space rich but RL poor, Plex for Good is meant to be a means for you to be able to contribute to a charity. In this case, it's for the Australian bushfires. As you'd know, there's an in-game character called CCP Plex for Good, and you can donate minimum amounts of Plex with a minimum of 100, just because it would be crazy trying to, as it is, it's already a nightmare trying to process all these contracts. But should still be accessible to most players in game. And at the end of the campaign, we tell up all the Plex that we made, convert that to real money, and then we give it to the Icelandic Red Cross, who'll give it to the Australian Red Cross to see that it gets out onto the ground. So if you're able to give, if you have the money in real life, you can donate directly to the Red Cross or some other charity of your choosing. Plex for Good is just meant to be mostly a conduit for people who have the means to contribute more in game than perhaps they do in real life.
There, Caleb linked it. Thanks, Caleb. Absolutely. So, big thank you to CCP Convict for coming on the show. You're always welcome. Anybody from CCP is always welcome, Convict. I mean, if you guys are, over the water cooler and said, "Hey, we just want to get on a show and tell people about something," just send us a note, and we're happy to let anybody come on. Because we complain, we complain a lot, but what we like is when we get to hear the good things at CCP. That makes us a lot happier than other things. And
sure, and just I think I mentioned this in morale, an inadvertent morale post that I made on Reddit a couple of months ago, was that people who complain, people who are angry about one thing or another, my personal philosophy on that is that these are some of the most passionate players, and the only reason they feel that way is because they care so deeply about Eve. Mm-hmm. So when I watch talk shows, and I occasionally see you guys sort of God damn it CCP, I don't sort of take that personally. I can totally empathize with where you're coming from, and I know it's just a sign that you guys care about Eve as squishy as it sounds. I mean,
squishy. I'm sure there are some people who do just like to be salty for the sake of it. They like
nobody on this channel. Nobody on this show.
They like getting the Reddit karma or whatever, and showing themselves out there. But I'm always a little bit disappointed when all I have to say are negative things about one thing or another, because it's, I don't know, I've been playing this game a long time now, and I want to keep playing it for years to come, and so I want it to be good and continue to improve. So yeah, I do hope that
I want
more than just you. I hope that your colleagues, when they watch stuff like this in our conversations, don't always take it as we're beating on you just for the sake of beating on you because it gets views or whatever.
Trust me, I've seen our views. It doesn't get views. It doesn't get views.
Yeah,
this is not an attractable selling marketplace.
You know what I mean, Mr. Warden. We're not doing it just because we can. We're doing it because we think that if we can point out some of the more negative ways that these things are having impacts, you might be able to address those.
Yeah, that's all good. So thank you everybody for a great day. We had a ton of people here. Thank you to Horrendous, Bargos, Caleb, Dirk, Mist, McLeod, and Sothersil for joining us on the show today, as well as CCP Convict. And if I push the right button, we'll actually go to the outro. If I push the wrong button, then who knows what will happen.
We're going to a weird video.
Thank you, Eric, for joining us on this show, because, without you, there'd be a lot fewer technical problems.
There'd be a lot less technical problems. So, yeah. If McLeod was in charge, there'd be a lot less technical problems, too. All right, everybody.
I'll be bang on that.
All right, we'll see you later, everyone. So everybody say bye.
Later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
God damn it.
answer the permit. I don't care if you buy a permit. Do you know how little I actually care if you have a permit?
Complaining about the fact that he received no support from that. I think Bode has some.
Yes, I do.
Leaks for us.
Oh, I got some leaks for you.
It's like simple shit like that. Simple shit like that. If he can't answer that publicly,
I need to break in because I need more original every week. That's a goal.
Do you really actually get paid for that? Because you deserve money for that last one. That one was a fucking amazing setup.